Before praying, let us read Psalm 32. Blessed is the one whose transgressions are forgiven, whose sins are covered. Blessed is the one whose sin the Lord does not count against them, and in whose spirit is no deceit. When I kept silent, my bones wasted away through my groaning all day long. For day and night your hand was heavy on me. My strength was sapped as in the heat of summer. Then I acknowledged my sin to you, and did not cover up my iniquity. I said, I will confess my transgressions to the Lord, and you forgave the guilt of my sin. Therefore let all the faithful pray to you while you may be found. Surely the rising of the mighty waters will not reach them. You are my hiding place. You will protect me from trouble, and surround me with songs of deliverance. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. Do not be like the horse or the mule, which have no understanding but must be controlled by bit and bridle, or they will not come to you. Many are the woes of the wicked, but the Lord's unfailing love surrounds the one who trusts in him. Rejoice in the Lord and be glad, you righteous. Sing, all you who are upright in heart. There is a quiet tenderness in these words, a gentle unveiling of the human soul before a merciful God. The psalm begins not with shame, but with blessing. Blessed is the one forgiven. Blessed is the one covered. In a world where mistakes cling to us and regrets echo in the night, this promise feels like cool water over a weary heart. David does not deny the weight of sin. He remembers the heaviness, the silence, the inward groaning that drained his strength. Yet even this memory is wrapped in hope, because it leads to confession. And confession leads to freedom. How softly the turning point comes. Then I acknowledged my sin to you. No dramatic display, no long defense, only honesty. The moment truth meets grace, forgiveness flows. God does not hesitate. He forgives the guilt. He restores the soul. What once felt like crushing heat becomes a place of shelter. You are my hiding place, David says. Not a place of hiding from God, but hiding in God. This is the mystery of renewal. The one we once feared becomes the one who surrounds us with songs of deliverance. As we begin this journey through Psalm 32, may we allow these words to settle gently within us. Perhaps there are unspoken burdens resting quietly in our hearts. Perhaps there are memories we wish we could rewrite. Yet the psalm reminds us that silence drains, while confession heals. God's loving eye remains upon us, not with condemnation, but with guidance. His unfailing love surrounds those who trust in him. In that love, we find courage to be honest, and in honesty, we find peace. The invitation is simple and tender. Rejoice, be glad, sing. For forgiveness is not only the removal of sin, it is the restoration of joy, the awakening of a heart made new. There is a particular loneliness that comes from carrying hidden guilt. Psalm 32 gently describes this inward suffering. When I kept silent, my bones wasted away. Silence can seem protective at first. We imagine that if we do not speak of our failures, they might slowly fade. Yet unconfessed sin does not disappear. It settles deeper into the soul. It shows itself in restlessness, in fatigue, in an unshakable heaviness that lingers even during moments that should feel joyful. David's words are not dramatic exaggerations. They are the honest testimony of a heart that tried to endure spiritual distance without admitting its need. Day and night, he felt the weight of God's hand. Not a cruel hand, but a loving one that refused to let him remain separated. Even discomfort can be mercy when it draws us back to truth. We may recognize this experience in our own lives. There are seasons when prayer feels dry, when worship feels distant, when joy seems muted. Often, beneath that dryness lies something unspoken. The Spirit gently presses upon our hearts, inviting us into the light. Yet fear whispers that confession will bring rejection. Psalm 32 tenderly corrects that fear. When David finally said, I will confess my transgressions to the Lord, forgiveness came immediately. There was no delay, no probation, no reluctant acceptance. God forgave the guilt of his sin. Notice that the psalm emphasizes not only forgiveness of wrongdoing, but forgiveness of guilt itself. The heavy burden that crushed his spirit was lifted. Confession was not humiliation, it was liberation. This is the quiet miracle of spiritual renewal. God does not ask us to carry what Christ has already borne. He invites us to lay it down. Confession is not about informing God of something he does not know. It is about agreeing with him, about stepping into honesty so that grace can fully restore us. When we stop pretending, when we stop hiding, our hearts begin to breathe again. The silence that once suffocated us is replaced with songs of deliverance. We discover that the Lord is not standing at a distance with accusation, but drawing near with compassion. Even his conviction is wrapped in love. It is the loving discipline of a father who desires closeness, not condemnation. There is also a gentle urgency in this psalm. Let all the faithful pray to you while you may be found. This is not a threat, but an invitation. Do not wait. Do not allow pride or fear to delay your return. The waters may rise, challenges may come, but those who run to God find refuge. He becomes a hiding place, a shelter that cannot be shaken. When we confess, we step into that shelter. We discover that honesty builds intimacy with God. Our relationship deepens, not because we are perfect, but because we are real. And in that reality, grace shines brighter than ever. As we reflect on forgiveness and renewal, let us consider the areas where we may still be silent. Are there quiet regrets we have carried for years? Are there small compromises we have excused? The Lord's loving eye is upon us, not to shame but to guide. He counsels us with tenderness. He longs to surround us with unfailing love. Confession is simply the doorway into that embrace. When we walk through it, we find that the burden we feared to release was the very thing preventing our peace. And once it is surrendered, joy begins to rise again, steady and pure, like a song long forgotten but now remembered in full harmony, a prayer for cleansing and a heart made new. As we continue to rest in the gentle truth of Psalm 32, our hearts begin to move naturally toward prayer. The psalm does not only teach us about confession, it invites us to experience it. David's story becomes our own when we dare to speak honestly before God. And so we come, not with polished words or perfect intentions, but with humility. We come acknowledging that without his mercy, our strength dries up. Without his grace, our silence becomes a prison. Yet with him, even the darkest corners of our hearts can be illuminated by hope. Let us pray softly within our spirits. Lord, I acknowledge my sin before you. I no longer wish to hide what you already see. Where I have failed, forgive me. Where I have resisted your guidance, soften my heart. Where guilt has weighed heavily upon me, lift it by your mercy. Teach me to trust that your love is greater than my mistakes. Teach me to believe that confession leads not to rejection, but to restoration. I declare that you are my hiding place. You are my refuge in times of trouble. Surround me with songs of deliverance when my thoughts try to condemn me. Renew my spirit with the assurance that I am forgiven, covered, and loved. There is power in declaring God's truth over our lives. I declare that I am not defined by my past transgressions. I am defined by God's forgiveness. I declare that the heaviness of unconfessed sin no longer has authority over my heart. I declare that God's unfailing love surrounds me as I trust in him. Even when I stumble, his counsel remains available. Even when I feel weak, his loving eye watches over me. The enemy may whisper shame, but the Lord speaks mercy. The enemy may remind me of failure, but the Lord reminds me of grace. In him, I am being made new. Spiritual renewal is often quiet and gradual. It may not always feel dramatic. Sometimes it is simply the gentle release of tension in our souls, the soft assurance that we no longer need to pretend. When we confess, God does not hold our past against us. Instead, he instructs us in the way we should go. He leads us forward, not backward. He does not treat us like stubborn animals that must be forced, but like beloved children who are guided by love. His counsel is patient, His direction is steady. As we yield to him, we begin to sense a new freedom in obedience. It is no longer driven by fear, but by gratitude. Let us also pray for a heart that remains sensitive. Lord, keep me from returning to silence. When conviction comes, help me respond quickly. When I drift, gently draw me back. May my spirit remain free of deceit, open and transparent before you. Create in me a rhythm of continual renewal, where confession is not rare, but regular. Let my life become a testimony of your restoring power. May others see the peace you have given me and be encouraged to seek you as their hiding place as well. As we rest in this prayer, joy begins to rise quietly within us. It is not the shallow joy of denial, but the deep joy of forgiveness. The psalm ends with a call to rejoice, and now we understand why. When guilt is lifted, when shame is removed, when love surrounds us, rejoicing becomes natural. So we rejoice in the Lord. We choose gladness. We lift our hearts in gratitude. For in his forgiveness, we have found not only cleansing, but renewal, guided by a loving eye. One of the most tender images in Psalm 32 is not only that of forgiveness, but of guidance. After David speaks of confession and restoration, the voice of the Lord gently emerges. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. This is not the voice of a distant ruler issuing cold commands. It is the voice of a caring shepherd who walks closely beside his sheep. Forgiveness is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of a new path. When guilt is lifted, our vision becomes clearer. We are able to hear God's direction without the distortion of shame. His guidance is not forced or harsh. It flows from relationship. The phrase loving eye suggests attentiveness, intimacy, and constant care. God does not merely correct us when we wander. He watches over us continually, ready to lead us gently forward. There is a contrast in the psalm that speaks quietly but firmly to the heart. Do not be like the horse or the mule, which have no understanding but must be controlled by bit and bridle. The Lord desires willing hearts, not stubborn resistance. When we refuse his counsel, life can feel strained and uncomfortable, as though we are being pulled in directions we do not wish to go. Yet when we trust him, guidance becomes peaceful. Spiritual renewal includes learning to respond quickly to his whisper. It is choosing surrender over pride, humility over self-reliance. The more we experience his forgiveness, the more we realize that his commands are not burdensome. They are protective. They keep us from returning to the very places that once caused us pain. His instruction is an expression of love. Just as a parent gently directs a child away from danger, God leads us toward life, wholeness, and quiet joy. Perhaps there have been seasons when we resisted his guidance. Perhaps we insisted on our own understanding, only to discover that our way led to dryness. Yet even then, his loving eye never left us. He waited patiently for us to turn back. The beauty of renewal is that it restores not only our standing before God, but also our sensitivity to him. We begin to notice his nudges more quickly, a subtle conviction, a gentle prompting to pray, a quiet reminder to forgive someone who hurt us. These are signs of a heart being shaped by grace. When we live in open confession and continual trust, our relationship with God grows softer and deeper. We no longer see him as someone to avoid when we fail, but as the one to run toward. Many are the woes of the wicked, but the Lord's unfailing love surrounds the one who trusts in him. What a comforting promise. The world around us may remain uncertain. Challenges may still arise. Yet those who place their trust in the Lord are encircled by steadfast love. This love is not fragile or temporary. It does not fade when we struggle. It surrounds us completely, like a protective embrace. Trust becomes the natural response to forgiveness. We trust because we have tasted mercy. We trust because we have experienced restoration. And in that trust, we find stability. As we reflect on this gentle guidance, let us open our hearts anew. Lord, teach me to follow willingly. Help me to listen before I speak, to pause before I act, to seek your wisdom in every decision. Keep my heart tender so that I do not need harsh correction to return to you. Let your loving eye be my comfort and my compass. May I walk in step with your spirit, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. For you have forgiven me, renewed me, and promised to guide me. In that promise, I find peace that steadies my steps and hope that carries me forward each day, surrounded by unfailing love. There is a quiet assurance woven into Psalm 32 that settles gently over the soul. The Lord's unfailing love surrounds the one who trusts in him. Surrounds, not visits occasionally, not appears only in moments of perfection. Surrounds. This word paints the image of being encircled, held on every side, covered from front and behind. When we have walked through confession and tasted forgiveness, we begin to understand this promise more deeply. God's love is not fragile, nor is it easily withdrawn. It is steadfast. It remains when emotions fluctuate. It remains when circumstances shift unexpectedly. It remains even when we are learning, slowly and imperfectly, how to trust again. Spiritual renewal is not only about being cleansed from past sin, it is about awakening to the reality that we are continuously embraced by divine love. The more we meditate on this truth, the more our anxious striving begins to quiet. We no longer feel compelled to earn what has already been freely given. Trust grows gently in the soil of forgiveness. When guilt is heavy, trust feels distant. We hesitate to draw near, unsure of how we will be received. Yet once we experience God's mercy, something changes within us. We begin to approach him with greater confidence, not because we are flawless, but because he is faithful. Trust is not blind optimism. It is a response to proven love. David knew sorrow and failure, yet he also knew restoration. That restoration taught him that God's heart was inclined toward compassion. In our own lives, we may recall moments when we feared the consequences of our mistakes, only to find that grace met us instead. Those memories become anchors. They remind us that the Lord's love does not fluctuate with our performance. It flows from his character, and his character is constant. To be surrounded by unfailing love does not mean we are exempt from hardship. The psalm acknowledges that many woes exist in the world. Challenges are real. Disappointments can still wound us. But there is a profound difference between facing trouble alone and facing it encircled by God's steadfast care. When we trust in him, difficulties no longer define us. They do not have the final word. Instead, they become places where his faithfulness is revealed more clearly. Spiritual renewal opens our eyes to see his presence even in valleys. We begin to notice small mercies, strength for the day, peace in the midst of uncertainty, unexpected encouragement through a kind word or a quiet moment of prayer. These are gentle reminders that his love is active and attentive. There is also a transformation that takes place in our hearts when we live surrounded by love. Fear gradually loosens its grip. Shame loses its voice. We become less defensive and more compassionate toward others. Having received mercy, we learn to extend it. Having been guided patiently, we learn to guide gently. Renewal is never meant to end with us. It overflows. The same love that encircles us begins to flow outward, touching relationships, softening conflicts, and restoring hope in places that once felt strained. When we trust in the Lord, our lives quietly testify to his goodness. Others may not always hear our full story, but they can sense the peace that forgiveness has planted within us. As we reflect today, let us pause and breathe in this promise. The Lord's unfailing love surrounds you, even now, in your uncertainties, in your questions, in your slow progress and sincere desire to grow. You are not standing on fragile ground. You are held within a covenant love that does not break. Let this truth settle deeply. Let it calm your restless thoughts. Let it strengthen your trust. And as you continue walking the path of renewal, may you do so with the quiet confidence that you are encircled by a love that will not fail. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. rejoicing with an upright heart. Psalm 32 concludes with a gentle yet joyful invitation. Rejoice in the Lord and be glad, you righteous. Sing, all you who are upright in heart. After confession, after forgiveness, after guidance and surrounding love, the natural response is rejoicing. This joy is not loud in a restless way, nor is it shallow or fleeting. It is the deep gladness that grows from reconciliation. When a heart once burdened by guilt becomes light again, gratitude begins to rise like a quiet song at dawn. Rejoicing is not denial of past failure, it is celebration of present grace. It is the soul's way of acknowledging that mercy has had the final word. There is something beautiful about the phrase, upright in heart. It does not describe perfection in behavior, but sincerity within. An upright heart is one that has stopped hiding. It is transparent before God, willing to confess quickly and trust fully. Through forgiveness, we are not only declared righteous, we are reshaped inwardly. Renewal changes our posture. Instead of shrinking back in fear, we stand gently in the assurance of God's acceptance. Instead of singing songs that feel forced, praise begins to flow naturally. Even quiet gratitude whispered in prayer becomes an act of rejoicing. Sometimes joy appears in small ways, a softened thought where bitterness once lived, a renewed patience with someone difficult, a calm assurance during uncertainty. These are signs of a heart learning to rejoice. Rejoicing also strengthens us for the journey ahead. Life will continue to present challenges, and we will still need grace daily. Yet joy becomes a steady foundation. It reminds us that we are not defined by yesterday's mistakes or tomorrow's worries. We are defined by God's faithful love today. When we choose to rejoice, we actively remember what He has done. We remember the heaviness that once drained our strength and the relief that came through confession. We remember the guidance of His loving eye and the shelter of His presence. Gratitude guards our hearts from drifting back into silence or self-reliance. It keeps us anchored in humility and trust. There is also a communal beauty in this invitation. Sing, all you who are upright in heart. Forgiveness is personal, yet rejoicing is shared. When we gather with others who have experienced God's mercy, our joy multiplies. We realize we are not alone in our weakness, nor alone in our renewal. Testimonies of grace encourage us. Songs of deliverance echo beyond individual stories. In community, we learn that spiritual renewal is part of a larger tapestry of redemption. God is continually restoring hearts, lifting burdens, and turning mourning into gladness. When we lift our voices together, even softly, we participate in that ongoing story. As we reflect on this gentle call to rejoice, let us allow joy to settle deeply within us. Lord, teach my heart to be glad in you. When I am tempted to focus on my shortcomings, remind me of your mercy. When circumstances feel uncertain, anchor me in the truth that your love surrounds me. Let my rejoicing be sincere, flowing from gratitude rather than obligation. May my life become a quiet song of praise, not because everything is easy, but because you are faithful. Shape my heart to remain upright, open, and responsive. And as I continue walking the path of forgiveness and renewal, let joy accompany me like a steady companion, reminding me that grace has transformed my story and continues to guide my steps each day. The gentle courage to remain honest. As we journey deeper into the spirit of Psalm 32, we begin to understand that forgiveness is not a single moment, but a rhythm of living. David's testimony invites us into a lifestyle of honesty before God. The blessing he describes at the beginning of the psalm is sustained through continual openness. Spiritual renewal flourishes where pretense fades. There is a gentle courage required to remain honest, especially after we have already experienced mercy. It can be tempting to believe that once forgiven, we must appear strong and untroubled. Yet the beauty of an upright heart is not flawless performance. It is transparent trust. God does not ask us to maintain an image. He asks us to remain near. Honesty before God creates a sacred freedom within the soul. When we know that His love surrounds us, we no longer need to hide small struggles or lingering weaknesses. We can bring them into His light without fear. This ongoing confession is not rooted in anxiety, but in relationship. Just as close friendships grow through sincere conversation, our intimacy with God deepens through truthfulness. We speak, and He listens. He corrects gently. He reassures tenderly. Over time, we discover that vulnerability with Him strengthens us rather than diminishes us. The areas we once tried to conceal become places where His grace shines most clearly. Renewal, then, is sustained not by striving, but by staying open. There is also courage in resisting the return of shame. Even after forgiveness, memories can resurface. The mind may revisit past failures, whispering subtle accusations. In those moments, we are invited to stand firmly in the truth of what God has declared. Blessed is the one whose transgressions are forgiven. If God has covered our sin, we need not uncover it again in self-condemnation. The enemy seeks to reopen what grace has sealed, but we gently refuse that voice. We remind ourselves that confession has already been met with mercy. The guilt has been lifted. The burden has been removed. This quiet confidence is not arrogance. It is trust in God's faithful character. Remaining honest also shapes the way we relate to others. When we have faced our own need for forgiveness, we become slower to judge. Compassion begins to replace harshness. We recognize that every heart carries hidden battles. Because we have known the relief of confession, we can offer safe spaces for others to share their struggles. Our lives become testimonies not of perfection, but of restoration. We reflect the loving eye of God in the way we look at others, attentive, patient, and kind. In this way, personal renewal gently influences our communities. Grace received becomes grace extended. As we continue reflecting, let us ask for this gentle courage. Lord, keep my heart tender and honest before you. Guard me from pride that pretends I no longer need your mercy. Guard me also from shame that forgets your forgiveness. Teach me to live in the freedom of continual renewal. When I stumble, draw me quickly back into confession. When I am tempted to hide, remind me of your surrounding love. Let my honesty deepen my trust, and let my trust strengthen my joy. May my life remain an open conversation with you, marked by humility and steady hope. In this posture of honesty, peace grows steadily. We no longer fear exposure because we are already known and loved. We no longer carry hidden burdens because we have learned the relief of surrender. And as we walk forward, upheld by grace, our hearts remain light. Forgiveness has not only cleansed us once, it continues to renew us daily. Sheltered in the secret place, you are my hiding place. You will protect me from trouble and surround me with songs of deliverance. These words from Psalm 32 echo softly, like a lullaby for the weary soul. After confession and renewal, David does not describe God as distant or intimidating. He calls him a hiding place. This is a sacred image of intimacy. A hiding place is not somewhere we flee in panic, but somewhere we rest in safety. It is personal, it is known, it is trusted. When forgiveness restores our relationship with God, we no longer hide from Him in fear, we hide within Him in trust. The very presence that once felt heavy with conviction becomes a refuge of peace. Life does not become free of storms simply because we are forgiven. Troubles still arise, sometimes unexpectedly, yet the promise of protection shifts our perspective. Protection does not always mean the absence of difficulty. Often it means the presence of divine shelter within it. When the waters rise, they do not overwhelm those who dwell in God's care. We may feel the wind, but we are not swept away. We may walk through uncertainty, but we are not alone. Spiritual renewal strengthens our awareness of this shelter. Instead of reacting with immediate fear, we learn to pause and remember where we belong. We belong in the secret place of God's faithfulness. There is also music in this hiding place. David speaks of being surrounded with songs of deliverance. This is a beautiful contrast to the groaning he described earlier in the psalm. Once, his silence produced inward anguish. Now, forgiveness produces melody. Deliverance has a sound. It is the quiet gratitude that rises in prayer. It is the peaceful assurance that hums beneath daily tasks. It is the gentle confidence that God has already acted on our behalf. Even when external circumstances remain unchanged, the inner song continues. Renewal gives us new ears to hear it. We begin to notice subtle harmonies of grace in ordinary moments. A comforting scripture, a timely encouragement, a calm thought where anxiety once lived. To dwell in God as our hiding place requires trust that is renewed daily. We choose to return to Him not only in crisis, but in routine. We cultivate habits of stillness, moments of reflection, small pauses throughout the day where we acknowledge His presence. These practices are not burdensome duties, they are pathways back to shelter. The more we abide, the more natural it becomes to run to Him at the first sign of trouble. Over time, fear loses its urgency because refuge has become familiar. We no longer scramble for security in fleeting things. We rest in a steadfast love that does not shift. As we reflect on this image of shelter, let us allow our hearts to soften. Lord, be my hiding place today. When worries attempt to crowd my thoughts, draw me back into your peace. When old accusations try to resurface, remind me that I am forgiven and protected. Surround me with songs of deliverance that quiet every anxious voice. Teach me to dwell in you, not occasionally, but continually. Let your presence become my first response, rather than my last resort. In this secret place, renewal deepens. We are not merely cleansed, we are kept. We are not merely forgiven, we are embraced. And as we remain sheltered in God's faithful care, our spirits grow steady and calm, confident that no storm can reach beyond the love that surrounds us completely, trusting the steady faithfulness of God. As Psalm 32 draws toward its joyful close, a quiet confidence settles into the heart. The journey has moved from silence and heaviness to confession, forgiveness, guidance, shelter, and rejoicing. Beneath each movement lies one unshakable foundation: the steady faithfulness of God. David's testimony is not centered on his own strength to repent perfectly, but on God's unwavering readiness to forgive and restore. This faithfulness becomes the anchor of spiritual renewal. Without it, confession would feel uncertain and trust fragile. But because God's character does not change, we can approach Him again and again with assurance. Trust grows when we reflect on who God has consistently proven Himself to be. He is the one who forgives the guilt of sin completely. He is the one who instructs with a loving eye. He is the one who surrounds with unfailing love and shelters in times of trouble. Each description in this psalm reveals a facet of His faithfulness. Even when David felt the heavy hand of conviction, it was not abandonment, it was faithful love drawing him back. Even when silence caused inward groaning, God remained attentive, waiting for the moment confession would open the door to grace. This steady patience reveals a God who does not turn away at the sight of weakness. In our own lives, remembering God's faithfulness reshapes our perspective. There may be seasons when emotions fluctuate, when prayers seem quiet, or when circumstances feel unstable. Yet His character remains constant. He does not forgive one day and withdraw the next. He does not guide with clarity only to confuse intentionally. His love does not weaken because we struggle. Spiritual renewal becomes sustainable when rooted in this truth. We are not upheld by our consistency, but by His. Our role is not to achieve flawless devotion, but to keep returning in trust. Each return strengthens our awareness that He has always been near. Trusting God's steady faithfulness also frees us from excessive self-reliance. When we understand that renewal is sustained by His grace, we release the pressure to perfect ourselves. We cooperate with His Spirit, yes, but we do so resting in His strength. Obedience flows from gratitude rather than fear. We listen for His counsel with expectancy rather than anxiety. Even when we fail, we know the path back is open. This assurance does not lead to carelessness. It cultivates deeper reverence. Knowing that His love remains constant inspires us to respond with sincerity and devotion. There is a quiet maturity that develops in a heart anchored in God's faithfulness. Reactions soften, patience increases, hope steadies. We no longer interpret every difficulty as rejection, nor every correction as punishment. Instead, we see them within the larger story of a God who is committed to shaping us. Renewal is no longer a fragile experience dependent on perfect circumstances. It becomes a steady rhythm sustained by divine constancy. The same God who forgave yesterday walks with us today and prepares the path for tomorrow. As we rest in this reflection, let us offer a gentle affirmation. Lord, I trust in your faithful love. When my feelings shift, you remain steady. When my understanding falters, your wisdom stands firm. Help me to remember your past mercies as evidence of your present care. Keep my heart anchored in who you are. May trust grow deeper than fear and stronger than doubt. Let my life quietly testify that you are faithful in forgiveness, faithful in guidance, faithful in shelter, and faithful in love. In this steady faithfulness, our renewal finds lasting strength. We move forward, not anxiously striving, but calmly trusting. And with each step, we discover again that the God who began this work of restoration continues it faithfully, surrounding us with grace that never fails. Quiet song of renewal. As we come to the end of this gentle reflection on Psalm 32, our hearts rest in a simple, steady truth. Forgiveness leads to renewal, and renewal leads to joy. What began with silence and heaviness has become a song of deliverance. We have seen that confession is not a doorway to shame, but to freedom. We have learned that God's loving eye watches over us, that His unfailing love surrounds us, and that He Himself is our hiding place. In Him, guilt is lifted, hearts are made upright, and weary spirits are strengthened again. Perhaps, as you have journeyed through these words, you have recognized your own story within David's testimony. There may have been seasons of quiet struggle, moments when silence felt easier than honesty. Yet God has remained faithful. His hand, even when heavy with conviction, has always been guided by love. And now, there is an invitation before you, to rejoice, to trust, to continue walking openly with Him. Renewal is not a single event, but a daily returning to grace. Let us end with a soft prayer. Lord, thank you for the blessing of forgiveness. Thank you for covering our sin and lifting our guilt. Keep our hearts tender and upright before you. Teach us to confess quickly, to trust deeply, and to rejoice sincerely. Surround us with your unfailing love and guide us with your gentle eye. May our lives become quiet songs of gratitude for all you have done. If this reflection has brought peace to your heart, may you carry it with you and share that peace with others. Continue seeking Him, continue trusting Him, and let your life sing of His mercy. Amen.